Hello, readers. Welcome to reading class with me, Miss Taylor. I'm glad you're here. Alrighty, so we know that reading is thinking. There are so many things going on in our brains. Isn't that awesome? We are making connections, we're visualizing, we're asking questions, we're summarizing, we're predicting, we're synthesizing, we're inferring, we're activating our schema and using that to help us make sense of new information and make those connections. All right, let's get what's happening here? Taylor's computer's acting funny. Let's get ready to read King Arthur. So we're going to finish chapter 2 today. And before we look at chapter 2, it is prudent for us to kind of think about what did we talk about yesterday? What did we read yesterday? So yesterday we read the first part of chapter 2 and we looked at, let's see, we reread page 25. And Arthur, what has Arthur done so far as king? Name two things. So on page 25, oops, where is page 25? There it is. All right. So on page 25, we want to find our text evidence here. Let's see. Soon after his coronation, Arthur gathered an army and drove out the invaders. He restored all the stolen land to its rightful owners and set about building castles to defend all the coasts and borders of the kingdom. Remember yesterday, we talked about, wow, that's a lot of stuff that King Arthur did right after he was crowned king. So you're not wasting any time. Wow, he is a real go-getter. He is getting stuff done. So let's see, he drove out invaders. He gathered an army. And he restored stolen land to its rightful owners. All right, so let's see. The next question talks about why did Arthur yell, "Stop!" on page 28. Ooh, page 28. Let's see. But he did know your father, insisted the old man, and he knows many other things about you. He knows that one day your kingdom will fall to a child who is not yet born, and that the same child will grow up to defeat you in battle, and that the child will be named Mordred, and stop, said Arthur. Oh, oh, Arthur's like, stop. You're telling me too much. He's got that's too much information, and it's too much information about. Is it good news that Merlin is telling him, or bad news? It's like, oh, he knows about you're going to grow up to be defeated in battle, and there's going to be someone named Mordred, and he's gonna beat you, and your kingdom is going to fall, and all this stuff. Where he's like, oh, stop telling me this, all this terrible news, Merlin. All right, so here we have, why did Arthur yell, stop? So I have Arthur felt overwhelmed at the bad news about the future. So Merlin is telling him all kinds of things that are going to happen. Oh my goodness, that is very overwhelming. That's a lot of bad news. I think I'd like to stop. Okay, so let's see. Number 4 says Arthur fired questions at Merlin on his journey to face Sir Pellinore, but Merlin refused to answer them. What does this tell us about Merlin? So here we have to do some inferring. We have to think about, what does it say in the story and what do we already know? And we can figure something out. So I figured out that Merlin is mysterious, maybe a little bit mean. Does he seem like he's being a little mean to Arthur? Secretive. He's got some secrets. And stubborn. He's like, I'm not telling you. You have a lot of questions for me. I'm not going to answer them. Kind of reminds me of my son. He's very stubborn too. All right, and what is one question you think Arthur asked Merlin? So my question, I thought he might be like, well, who is this Mordred that you said? You mentioned there's somebody named Mordred, and who's that? Oh dear. So you might have had a different question that you were thinking. All right, so that is a little bit from what we did yesterday. So, and then you read a few pages on your own, and you read about the battle between King Arthur and Pellinore. Woo-hoo. All right, and where you stopped, right here, hopefully you read up until page 33, and we are going to go ahead and read a little bit together and answer some questions. So, would you please join me on page 33? All right. Merlin led the way to a cottage deep in the forest, which was the home of an ancient healer. The old man treated Arthur's wounds with herbal lotions, and after 3 days he was well enough to ride again. They thanked the healer and left. I wish I hadn't broken my sword, said Arthur as they were riding through the forest. Oh, yeah, he broke his sword, right, when he was fighting with Sir Pellinore. Don't worry, said Merlin. You'll soon have another one, or have another that will last forever. It'll be the best sword in the world, forged in the depths of Lake Avalon. That means kind of created. The best sword in the world. Once again, Arthur had no idea what Merlin was talking about. But the old magician always seemed to know exactly what was going to happen, so he said nothing. And at that moment, they trotted out of the shadow of the trees into the bright sunshine. A gleaming expanse of water lay before them, with a huge purple mountain rising up behind it. Ooh, try to get a picture in your mind, try to visualize this scene. So there's a gleaming expanse of water, big open area of water, and a huge purple mountain. Arthur scanned the lake's silvery surface, and without knowing why, he found his eyes coming to rest in a spot in the middle. Without any warning, a hand suddenly shot up from beneath the water, holding a jewel-covered sword and scabbard. Remember, that's the case of the sword, which sparkled in the sunlight. Look over there, shouted Arthur in amazement. Look at that sword. That's Excalibur, Arthur. It's the sword you will carry to the end of your days. Arthur jumped down from his saddle and waded into the water. That means he walked in, as if drawn to the sword by some magical force. He's like, must have that sword. A fine mist was rolling down the mountainside and rapidly covering the lake. Are you getting a picture in your mind? So the author is using all these descriptive words to help us imagine what is this like. Look, said Merlin, pointing across the water. A tall woman in a long robe was gliding across the surface towards them. Ah, that's the Lady of the Lake, Merlin whispered. If you want to own Excalibur, you must do exactly what she says. The Lady of the Lake was now right in front of them, hovering just above the still, misty water. She was just hovering on top of the water. Arthur stared at her in disbelief. King Arthur, she said in a deep, gentle voice, Excalibur will be yours if you agree to do whatever I ask in the future. I will do whatever it is in my power to do, said Arthur, intent only on getting hold of the sword as soon as possible. I promise, he added hurriedly. Now, wait a second. Now, I know Arthur wants to get that sword, right? But is he really thinking about what she is asking him to do? She's like, you can have this sword if you agree to do whatever I ask in the future. But what if she's evil and asks him to do something bad? Is Arthur being very thoughtful, very wise here? He's like, I must have it. I promise. Yeah. Give me the sword. Then use my barge. It's like a big boat, said the lady, gesturing toward an ornate boat half hidden among the reeds at the side of the lake. Ooh, look at that cool boat. Arthur needed no more encouragement. He raced along the shore, stepped into the boat, and pushed out into the deep, dark water. The barge drifted silently across the lake, parting the carpet of mist before it. When it reached the middle, Arthur stretched out and plucked the sword and scabbard from the fairy hand. At once the little arm disappeared back into the water. So she had her hand stuck up, or there was a fairy hand actually sticking up, and then went right back under when he grabbed the sword. Excalibur was the most beautiful weapon Arthur had ever seen. He was so lost in admiration that he was unaware of the boat floating gently back to the shore or of the Lady of the Lake vanishing into the still water. By the time he looked back, the surface was as smooth and calm as before. Ooh, all right. We're going to pause here and we're going to look at a couple things in our packet. And then your job for later today is to finish reading the chapter. So we just have a couple pages left about what happened after Arthur got Excalibur from the Lady of the Lake. Oh, just a couple pages left. So let's take a look in our packets. And we have, actually for today, you have a choice. So you are going to finish reading chapter 2, and then you are going to work on either page 9 in your packet or page 10. So you kind of have a choice today. You can work on page 9 or page 10. Now, some of you might want to do both pages. If you want to do both pages, awesome. But you might just want to pick one page. You can decide. So here, we are doing some sequencing. So it says, strategy focus, sequence events. Thoughtful readers think about important events in the chapter and the order in which they happen. Please number these events in order to describe the battle between Arthur and Sir Pellinore. All right, so you are going to put these in order. Now, I've helped you to get started. The first thing that happens is Arthur and Pellinore jousted 3 times on horses. So they were jousting. That's the first thing. The second thing, maybe take a look at this one. Can you see the second thing? I should mention it would be a prudent idea for us to look in our book, for us to use our text evidence. And let's see, if we go back to where he meets Sir Pellinore. Yes, page 30. So it would be a good idea as we're working through this to be on, actually here on page 31, they jousted 3 times, right? Charging fearlessly across the clearing, clashing their lances together. The horses panted and steamed as their sharp hooves pounded the dewy grass into mud. The first and second time, both of the lances broke, and neither knight could gain an advantage. But the third time the opponents clashed together, Sir Pellinore swung his lance into exactly the right position, and Arthur was knocked off his horse. Arthur was knocked off his horse, wasn't he? Oh dear. Where was I? He leaped to his feet, abandoned his lance, and whipped his sword from its scabbard. You may be better at jousting, he shouted bravely, but let's see what you can do on foot. And now they are fighting on foot. So they've gotten off their horses now. They are fighting on foot. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. So I've helped you to get started. You're going to finish labeling or sequencing those events. And then, number 7, there's a simile where the author uses, the author, she's comparing Sir Pellinore to something else, and it's on page 32. And it's kind of a funny simile. And a simile is where we compare two people or two things using like or as. And we had similes in chapter 1. So in chapter 1, we talked about how the snake was being compared to the blade of the sword. We had another simile where the sword was being compared to a warm knife into butter. So on page 32, the author compares Sir Pellinore to something else as he is fighting. I'm going to give you a clue. It is somewhere around here. Okay. All right. Let's see. When you get to the bottom here, we are doing some visualizing. And so here we're working on noticing beautiful language and paying attention to descriptions that help us to paint a picture in our minds. So here you're going to reread these pages and write down at least 5 descriptions that the author uses to describe the scene at Lake Avalon and the beautiful sword. Then see if you can make a sketch of what you are visualizing. So on these pages, the author uses some very descriptive language, some really cool words to describe the scene, to describe what things look like. And so I've given you a few examples here: the gleaming expanse of water, the huge purple mountain. Let's see, I know it talks about the silvery surface of the water, the silvery surface of the water. And let's see, there is also the deep, dark water. So here we're looking for some descriptions about the scene of Lake Avalon and the beautiful sword. And so you're going to try to see if you can come up, or if you can find some more words that are in the text that the author uses to describe Lake Avalon and the beautiful sword, and then see if you can draw kind of a little picture. So when I see this, it's like a purple mountain. Maybe I'll put like a mountain back here. And there's like water. The water is like gleaming and kind of like sparkling. And let's see, the silvery surface. Again, that would be kind of like sparkling. And then you might want to draw the hand that comes up, that the fairy hand that Arthur is like, oh, I must have it. And he grabs and I have a picture that I drew from before. I can show you. It kind of looks like this. There's my fairy hand. Okay, so if you would like to do page 9, that is what you're going to do. Or if you would prefer to work on page 10, page 10, it asks some questions for us to think about. And then one more question or wondering you have after the second chapter of King Arthur. So you are either going to do page 10 or page 9 or both. And then you're going to finish reading chapter 2. Actually, finish reading chapter 2 and then finish your packet work. And then next time, chapter 3. Well, what's chapter 3 called? Let's see, we read The Sword and the Stone, Excalibur, The Gathering of the Knights. Ooh, I can't wait. All right, have a great day, readers. Bye.